Eddie Gallagher was being looked at again to possibly serve jail time as people are combing through some of his statements after the fact of him being acquitted of some of the biggest charges that could have landed him in jail for a long time. Now it looks like official Navy sources have spoke out against this and have kind of shut the door on some of these possible investigations that would be against him, but we're going to talk about that right here. I do want to give the little backstory to this, as some people have jumped in, jumped out of this story over time, and maybe have caught only a couple pieces of it, but I will give you a TLDR. So it looks like Eddie Gallagher was a prior Navy SEAL that was out of SEAL Team 7, which was being charged for the loss of life by a member of ISIS. Yes, I said it like that because YouTube censorship, and oh my god, if I don't just say the whole word. I'm trying to get the information out to you. Chill, guys. But what I want to go into is he did get acquitted of those charges, but he did say he was guilty of posing in these photos, which is a crime, and he did serve 9 months in a military bridge cell, prison, whatever you want to call it, where essentially that time did count towards that charge itself. So when he was acquitted of the other charges, that time did count towards that, and then he was busted down to the rank from E7 Chief Petty Officer down to the rank of First Class Petty Officer, which is E6. Now, all these charges did stem from his teammates with the SEALs, that they came out and said he was a overbearing leader, was very aggressive, was overstepping, and he was hungry and more aggressive towards the population, and he was willing to do anything to get his rocks off, essentially trying to take the lives of people in the local area, even if that meant civilians. This created an ethical battle where people supported Eddie when they said that Eddie was a war hero and he was just doing his job as a Navy SEAL, and that ethics were not a place on the battlefield. While on the contrary side, there are people that were the teammates that were talking about this and said that we are the U.S. military and we hold the highest honor or integrity when we look at our wartime situations, and we would have a higher ethics standard than our adversaries, and we should not be expected to meet the same level as them. Eddie Gallagher's case has been controversial for several years, but what's not controversial is the fact we're almost at 100,000 subscribers. We are almost at 99,000. If you guys hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, comment something down below, it does help the channel, so I would greatly appreciate it. Now, this all comes to a head when Eddie is on the Line podcast, which is on Apple. I've watched it. It's a documentarian type podcast. You can listen to this thing. It is so well produced. They have interviews from Eddie, interviews from teammates, interviews from all these different people to really give a good picture of the story, and they really don't go one way or the other. I would say I think it's a pretty middle line podcast to display both sides. That's not where the issue lies. The issue lies at where Eddie makes a few statements on this podcast where he talks about some of the treatments that were rendered towards this ISIS member, 17-year-old boy, where they said that they were doing these medical treatments in order to ensure that they were just doing it for practice to save his life, but really it wasn't for that. And it looks like they knew that if he went back with the enemy that they would be dismembered and obviously be torn apart left and right, and they felt that this was a more humane thing to do, and that there's other things that did go with this where he said he's mine, got him with him a hunting knife, things like that during this through text message, which did paint him in a bad light from that as well. Now, once this entire case was over, former President Donald Trump did intervene because there were JAG officers in the Navy that got awards for doing this case. On top of that, they did step in with the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Gilday, which did remove that rank bust down from E7 to E6 and restored him back to a Chief Petty Officer. Now, that left a lot of people asking, he is talking about this case. Does this align with what the podcast said to what he said in his court case? Could they catch him in something else? Is there something that could be slipped that they could, address maybe differently to bring more charges against him? Are there more charges they could bring against him, even though he's been acquitted of every single other charge that was against him back several years ago now? Now, my source for this video is Navy Times, but I have looked across other articles as well, and they echoed the same statements throughout this entire thing from the official Navy spokesperson. The Navy announced Tuesday that it will not pursue further action against former Chief Special Warfare Operator Eddie Gallagher for comments he made earlier this year on a podcast regarding medical treatment of an ISIS detainee who later died in 2017. And they also said, after a review conducted by the Navy, it was determined that Gallagher's statements were not corroborated and no substantiative information was found to merit an investigation based on those statements. Navy spokesman Commander Courtney Hilson said in an email to Navy Times. They also went on to say, evidence against Gallagher related to the medical treatment and death of the detainee was already investigated and or adjudicated at Gallagher's court-martial, she said. Under the Uniform Code of Military Justice and our Constitution, he cannot be prosecuted again for these alleged offenses. What they're talking about there is double jeopardy. You can't charge someone again, trying to come at them again for the same charge, and so that's what they're saying, that there's nothing new here that they could go after, even though there was a lot of concern for people saying Eddie should shut up. One of those big prominent names is even here on YouTube, which is the Marine Reacts infamous Jameson Travels, which talked about this statement that was on the podcast, also reflecting on some stuff that happened in the news, and he is saying, Eddie, chill out, you've already been acquitted, go relax. But we're going to go into this because Eddie is not doing that at all. It looks like Eddie is now coming out full force forward, going against the grain, even after being acquitted, which it's been announced that he wrote a book. Navy SEAL? Right. There's going to be a book. Wait for the podcast. Wait, he already did one with the line, but he's going to create his own. I'm just ready for it. But in this book, it is known that he is going against the grain by saying that he is going against the status quo and believes that he was guilty and had to prove innocent.
Yeah, you're right. You know, this can't and it shouldn't happen, but it did, and that's the reason we're doing the tell-all book and just showing the American people exactly how they treat our warfighters. I believe that we've seen it in the past year, how we treat our law enforcement. It's the same premise, and you know, we serve our country, we dedicate our lives to, you know, defeating evil, and we risk our lives while doing it. You know, the least you can do is give us due process when we are accused of something. It's immediately guilty until proven innocent, and that's not the way it should be.
Now, this book is titled The Man in the Arena. Obviously, Eddie Gallagher is not an author. I'm going to assume he had someone co-write this with him or help him write it throughout this process, and probably, you know, is trying to sell a story that way, as many Navy SEALs have done before him. But my assessment of this entire thing is this. There are two camps. He could go, shut up, sit in a corner, collect his retirement check, and go without anyone ever knowing what he did or what's going on, you know, and live out his life doing something totally different, maybe doing something that is more behind the scenes that people don't see him in the public eye. But I will say that's probably not going to be the case. If you look at this, his wife is actually a public relations expert. This is noted in the Line podcast. And, you know, when I look at the situation, I have to tell you, she did a pretty good job putting a united front and creating a rallying force behind Eddie during this. And during the podcast, during her interview, she does talk about how she will not back down. She knew that she had to come out, and she felt like they could do this because if they whimpered and backed down, it would maybe give the perception that they were guilty and that they actually were not, and that they were not fully for Eddie, and maybe that would show a sign of weakness. So she came out with her public relations expertise and really garnered some support, and actually came out and advocated for Eddie even when he couldn't advocate for himself. So this is the part of the video where I ask you guys, what do you think about the situation with Eddie Gallagher? Do you think he should shut up, collect his retirement check, and move on with his life and move forward from this entire situation? Or do you think that Eddie should go out with the blaze of glory trying to change what he believes are wrongs in the system and die on this hill that he's already been acquitted of many of the charges that he went through besides taking the photo? I'd love to know what you guys think down below, because this has been a case that's played over the past several years. I don't think this is the last time that we're going to hear from Eddie Gallagher, as he will continue to ruffle feathers, and I think that's where we're going to lay with this one. But as always, if you guys like what we do on this channel, you can support over at patreon.com, down in the description below for some special personal benefits. On top of that, we also have the YouTube membership button down below this video or on the main channel, where you can get some special perks and benefits here on the YouTube channel as well. As always, if you guys do have questions about this or anything else, you can always hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, or down accounts below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.